The new Modular was just announced on Monday. And with this highly anticipated reveal, Modular fans, as always, are split in their response to the first impression.
Yep.
So in this special edition of Off the Cuff, we're going to address the biggest critique, which is the color scheme. And before that, we're also going to talk about a couple other things. Colin, what are some of the other critiques you've heard pop up in the LEGO community?
Well, of course, one of the big critiques that everyone likes to examine when a modular is released is the building techniques for the exterior. People want a great display piece. They want it to look amazing, and they want it to be complex in terms of the building techniques. And I think the modular series over the years has delivered that. So some people have commented that there aren't a lot of really complicated building techniques on the exterior. However, I do think there are a lot of fantastic building techniques. In fact, we did a whole detailed breakdown of the Natural History Museum. You can check out one of the cards up in the corner where we go through, like, there's complex building techniques with the columns. Even the trim around the windows is unique. It's not something that we've seen in that kind of way with LEGO modulars before. And the stairs, I think, are fantastic. The Brachiosaurus skeleton and some of those mini builds, I think, are really interesting, as, of course, is the roof. Like, the whole roof line, I think, is really impressive, especially the building of the skylights and the dome. So there's a lot there to keep you entertained as an advanced builder throughout the set. I understand where people look at that critique. They want it to be a rigorous build. But at the end of the day, I think the setup of the set is good. I think it looks great from that perspective. So what is a critique that you've seen that piques your curiosity?
So some people don't like that the cherry tree has these dark gray Technic pieces. So we have kind of this reddish brown all the way down the trunk, and then all of a sudden dark gray, reddish brown, dark gray. I have to agree. I think it looks not so good. With that particular issue, there's always some give and take. So LEGO has to consider, like, is it worth it to make this piece in a new color that they've never used before? I think ideally you'd want all of it the same color. So ideally LEGO would have said, okay, here's the pieces that we need. Let's make them in reddish brown to have a reddish brown trunk. Maybe that just was too expensive a decision for a detail like that. I think there are other colors that could have even worked for that if they could have done it in dark brown. I think that would have been better than the dark gray. But there's always some give and take with that. I don't necessarily like their decision, but I don't know all of the calculus that went into that either.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, right, I mean, one of the nice things about LEGO that people will comment on whenever they see these kinds of critiques online is, well, it's LEGO, you can adjust things as you want to. And so LEGO does have building standards that they have to adhere to in terms of strength and quality of the connection points. But at your house, your apartment, you don't have to do that, right? You can have it be kind of, weaker if it looks better to you. And so, that's one of the beautiful things about LEGOs. You can adjust it. You can alter it as you see fit. But there are some cases where I don't think that works, right? And that would certainly be the color scheme, right? Like, you're buying a $300 LEGO set, and the common critique we've seen is just this color, olive green, is awful. Now you've done some research just on, like, natural history museums and what they look like. Well, what did you find?
Just looking at the exterior of some of the most famous natural history museums, I think of maybe not the natural history, but the Field Museum in Chicago. It's kind of an iconic museum, and it's got this almost white exterior, just your classic Greek architecture with your columns and, the apexes and everything. Another famous one is the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian one. And that one, again, it's a very, very light color, almost white. It does have a dome to it, so it's a little bit different architecture, but again, very light in color. And then a third one I looked at was the Natural History Museum in London. Now, this one's got a different look from the ones that I just mentioned. It has a Gothic architecture, which we see in the roof lines of the LEGO set, which is interesting, but it does not have the Greek columns. But it's still a lot lighter. It looks a little bit darker than the ones in the US that I just mentioned, but it's still a lot lighter than what we got in the Lego set. It's got more like dark tan and kind of light tan type colors in it. So to me, that would have made a lot more sense.
In doing your research then, what colors do you think would be better to use for the Natural History Museum than olive green?
So a lot of those museums are in almost a white. So either a white or a tan would be, I think, really fantastic colors. Also some other maybe lighter neutral colors, maybe even going as far as dark tan for some of the accents and things. In fact, we've got a challenge for you.
Ooh,
if we get at least 200 likes on this video, we will buy the modular, we'll build it, and we'll change the color out in 3 colors?
I don't know about 3, but at least maybe 2 colors. We can figure something out. So we'll give you some additional color combinations to see how it would look as opposed to olive green. So certainly that might require us to change up some of the trimming as well. So we want to think about that. But yeah, I think limestone, sandstones, those kinds of materials look really good for the Natural History Museum. I like where you're going with this. So now it's on you, YouTube. If you can like this video, take a moment, do that right now. That way you can see more combinations. And while you're at it, subscribe, because then when we drop that video, you'll be able to see it. I mean, at the end of the day, right, when you spend $300, it's hard on a set that's a premium product. It's hard for you to say, okay, I don't like the color. I like the look of the set. I like the architecture. I like the building techniques. I just want to switch out all of the olive green for another color. That's a lot to ask. I mean, that requires a lot of bricks that people may not either have lying around, or they may not want to spend the money on bricks and arches and plates to then change out some of those colors when you're already spending $300 on a set. So, I thought it was interesting thinking about that angle from it. A lot of people looking at Eurobricks, Brickset, even the comments in our video that we dropped of our breakdown, either the olive green is a non-starter, or they'll get it because they love the modulars, but they're not thrilled about that color combination. Now, Tiago Caterino did put a video with an interview of Chris McVeigh, who was the lead design for the Natural History Museum. And what did he say in that interview?
So according to him, the decision to go with olive green was a unanimous decision. And they were really considering what would look good with the modular buildings that are already out there if you're creating your modular street. And he said they hadn't used olive green since 2014. So it'd been a while. So they're ready to use that color again, and it would fit well. What would you say to that?
I mean, I'm kind of puzzled by that decision. I think a lot more people are going to be turned off by the color mechanism, the color scheme of the individual set than they are how it looks to the most recent ones. I understand that there's a option for people to buy those other sets. So if you are introducing people to Lego modulars with this set, and it might do that. I mean, Natural History Museum is one of the most sought after modular style sets. People want that. You look at Lego Ideas, and there's so many submissions with a history museum or just a museum in general. So I think there's demand for that. So it could bring new people in that would want to then buy those others. I'm not sure people are thinking about it that way. I think people look at the modular itself and they say, I like this color, I don't like this color, and that's going to determine whether or not they buy it, not how it looks. I also think Lego did itself a disservice with the black box. I love the black box look, and I know that they do different shadings and color like deviations on the background just to kind of help things pop a little bit. But dark color for the Natural History Museum, there are some dark colors in both the Jazz Club and the Boutique Hotel, and so it's just a lot of darkness on that image on the back of the box that I guess I'm not really convinced shows the Natural History Museum in its best light. There is an image of one of the people like putting the roof on the building, and it's in a much more natural light setting, and I think it looks better. But at the end of the day, I'm not buying that as a good justification for it. I would also say that, yeah, you can be unanimous in olive green's the way to go, but that doesn't mean it's the best color for this and what's going to really engage fans or just casual fans of Lego. One thing to keep in mind is that the Parisian restaurant, yes, does use olive green. It was a little controversial at the time internally. Like, was that a color that would be too drab? And they mitigated that by using a lot of tan and white accents. And you look at that set, there's a lot there. The window trims, the dark blue roof pops nicely with the olive green. But the Parisian restaurant is not even a full base plate in length. It's a little bit narrower, which means that it's not really overwhelming you when you look at it. This is a 48 wide modular, and it's all olive green. So I totally get why people look at that and think, I don't know, it looks more like a haunted house, or it looks kind of like a, strange billionaire's mansion on the outskirts of town kind of thing. Like if Scrooge were alive, I was envisioning Scrooge like having a house like this, where it's got these, fences with the wrought iron and the little spikes on the top, and Gothic looking statues and a Gothic roof with weird columns, because that's his taste of architecture, and olive green would be the color. I don't know. I see it that way. Pre Ghost Visit Scrooge, of course. So
yeah, and I think it's a little bit odd that they would say that this is what goes best with the recent sets, because there, as you pointed out, there are a lot of dark sets, and now we have another dark modular. We almost need something to lighten it up. Yeah. And looking at some real life examples, they're all light, so it seems like it would be a natural fit to be like, oh, we're going to make another light one. Either light, the lighter shade of tan or white, or like those brighter colors that would kind of lighten up your street. Have there been some other modulars that had a similar critique? Yeah,
that's a really good question. I know that there's two elements to this that, if you think about it from decision making, like whether it's a fan buying a set or even Lego coming out with a module like that. I know that when the Green Grocer came out, so I remember reading an interview with Jamie Berard, who designed the first few modulars. He noted that it was a difficult decision to figure out what color to make the Green Grocer. They liked the sand green, but there were some people internally that were worried that it would just not be a bold enough choice. Like it just would come out in the wash, or is that really the shade of green you want to use? And in the end, I think it was a great choice. It's one of my favorite modulars. Again, using some nice accents, light gray on the bottom, tan accents for the windows, the black roof looks fantastic. The big one that I can think of course, there are two that I think have received a lot of criticism for color choices. The first one is the Downtown Diner. When that was announced, like there were people losing their mind on like forums and chat rooms about the pink and the turquoise and the tan color combinations. I mean, people were just very upset about the use of some of those colors, but in part because that was a shift in architecture for the modulars as well. Before that, you had a lot of the late 19th century, early 20th century architecture. This bumped us into the 1950s and some of that more modern era architecture that people didn't like going that direction with the Lego modulars. So that was, I think, a twofold problem that in the end, you get used to it. I like the Downtown. I think it's an underrated modular. I love the build. It's some incredible building techniques. And the color scheme grows on you. Of course, last year, the Jazz Club, I think, was also controversial. Some people didn't like the dark red, and some people really didn't like the cool yellow for the pizzeria because it was, becoming more of a Friends-like choice. Now, I would argue that the bookshop apartment from a couple of years ago, that was very much like an Elves/Friends look in some ways. And I like that set. It's one of my least favorite modulars. I think it's still a great set, but it's kind of low on my list of modulars if you check out our rankings of modulars. But I mean, every year it's something new. People are going to critique it. And it's a little bit of an armchair quarterback situation where it's easy from, our living rooms or, sitting in our office chairs or whatever, critiquing the decisions that were put into that. I don't know if this really feels all that different. I think if you get it, it probably would grow on you. So, yeah.
Color display piece.
Yeah.
And we're so privileged to even be able to consider this and be able to talk about these small critiques over this wonderful set. So we definitely recognize that and recognize our privilege in that and are thankful for that. But we just have fun thinking about it and talking about, the different choices that are made.
Yeah, and trust me, we think of a lot of other things as well. Parenting, civics, and in the world that we live in today, the climate that we have, it is nice to be able to go back to a hobby and think about some of these things in addition to all the serious stuff that goes on in life. So at the end of the day, yes, this is a privilege for us to talk about this. We enjoy thinking about it, talking about it, bantering a little bit about it. And, it's, like you said, a premium product, $300 that we're able to talk about and hopefully able to buy I can still get this for Christmas, right?
We'll see.
Okay. So there you have our conversation about the controversy surrounding the new LEGO Modular History Museum. We hope you liked it. Hey, make sure you like the video, 200 likes, more color combinations, subscribe, and always remember to keep building together.